Rain doesn't sound the same when you're drowning. David Rodriguez learned that at 2:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, that would split his life in half. His hands trembled as he clutched the resignation letter. 3 sentences that would either save his son or destroy everything he'd built. Here's what haunts me about this story. David was the architect of Erickson Industries' most profitable quarter in company history, yet he couldn't afford basic health insurance for his 8-year-old son Marcus, whose fever had just spiked to 104 degrees. The resignation email went out at exactly 2:43 a.m. 6 hours later. Alice Erickson, the Ice Queen CEO who'd never spoken to him outside of conference rooms, was standing on his cracked apartment porch, soaked to the bone, clutching a manila envelope like it contained the launch codes to nuclear war. But here's where reality bent. Alice wasn't there to sue him. She wasn't there to threaten him. She was there to show him a truth he'd been blind to for 7 years, a truth that proved David had been working for the very people who destroyed his family. And what she pulled from that envelope would turn his entire world inside out. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel, and it reminds us that hope and second chances are universal languages. Let me paint you the scene that most people never see. David's apartment smelled like fever sweat and unpaid bills, a combination that sticks to your throat. The medical monitor attached to Marcus's finger beeped irregularly, each skip making David's chest tighten. He'd worked 80-hour weeks for 3 years straight, missed his son's school plays, birthday parties, parent-teacher conferences. For what? To afford the specialized care Marcus needed after the genetic condition they discovered when he was 5. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. David never questioned why his wife's death 7 years ago coincided exactly with his promotion to lead financial architect. He never asked why the company suddenly offered him a position that happened to come with medical benefits extensive enough to cover Marcus's rare treatments. He just accepted it. We all want to believe our success is earned, not manufactured. That's the beautiful trap, isn't it? The merger he'd just completed was worth $847 million. David had structured every decimal point, every tax loophole, every offshore account. 3 months of work compressed into 6 weeks because Julian Vane, the board member who always wore suits that cost more than David's annual rent, had pushed the timeline forward. Family emergency, Vane had said with that smile that never reached his eyes. 24 hours ago, David had received the call that shattered his cage. The insurance representative's voice was professionally apologetic. Mr. Rodriguez, Marcus's specialized care authorization has been restructured, effective immediately. Restructured. Corporate speak for we're cutting you off. The merger was complete. The deal was done. David had served his purpose. That's when the invisible walls became visible. Every opportunity had been a chain. Every benefit had been a leash. And Marcus, his beautiful, brilliant 8-year-old who loved astronomy and couldn't pronounce supernova without giggling, was a leverage they'd used to keep David compliant for 7 years. So David did the only thing a desperate father could do. He typed 3 sentences that would either free him or finish him. I resign effective immediately. I will not be available for transition discussions. Consider this my final communication with Erickson Industries. Send. And then he waited for the lawsuit he knew was coming. What he didn't expect was a woman in the blue dress standing in the rain. Alice Erickson looked nothing like her Forbes profile photo. That woman had perfect hair, a controlled smile, eyes that could freeze quarterly reports. The woman on David's porch had mascara running down her cheeks, hair plastered her skull, and hands that wouldn't stop shaking. She was gripping that manila envelope so tightly her knuckles had gone bloodless. "May I come in?" Her voice cracked. The Ice Queen's voice never cracked. David should have slammed the door. She was the enemy, the CEO, the person who built a company that was now trying to kill his son through bureaucratic strangulation. But something in her eyes stopped him, a recognition of shared drowning. So he stepped aside. Inside, she didn't sit. She stood dripping on his cheap linoleum, staring at Marcus's medical equipment like it was a crime scene. "I didn't fire you," she said finally. "I couldn't have fired you if I wanted to. As of 48 hours ago, I no longer have that authority." Here's where the story fractures. Alice wasn't there as a CEO. She was there as another victim of the same machine that had been grinding David down for 7 years. The board had ousted her the moment the merger completed. Julian Vane and his coalition had orchestrated a quiet coup while David was busy structuring offshore accounts. She discovered it when her executive access codes stopped working. No warning, no severance discussion, just locked out. "But this," she said, holding up the envelope, "this is why I'm really here." What came out of that envelope rewrote everything. Documents, research papers, lab notes and handwriting David recognized from birthday cards and grocery lists. His wife's handwriting. Elena Rodriguez, biochemist mother, the woman who died in a random car accident 7 years ago, had been working on revolutionary medical technology before her death, genetic treatment protocols that could cure conditions like Marcus's. Alice's voice was barely a whisper. "Your wife's research wasn't random laboratory work, David. It was funded by Erickson Industries through a shell company. When she discovered we were planning to patent her breakthrough and price it beyond reach of families like yours, families like the one she was building with you, she threatened to go public. She was going to release it as open source." The rain hammered harder against the window. Each drop sounded like an accusation. 3 weeks later, her brakes failed on Highway 101. The police report called it mechanical failure. But Alice pulled out another document, this one marked with Julian Vane's signature. "This is a maintenance invoice for your wife's car, dated 2 days before the accident, signed by a company contractor who, according to public records, doesn't exist." Let me be clear about what this means, because when I first read this story, I had to stop and breathe. David hadn't just been working for the company that killed his wife. He'd been weaponized against her memory. The merger he'd just completed, it was designed to bury Elena's patents under 17 layers of corporate acquisition, making them legally untouchable. Every hour David worked, every brilliant financial structure he built, every tax shelter he created, all of it was cementing the vault over his wife's stolen legacy. And Marcus's medical coverage? That wasn't generosity. That was the leash. Keep David compliant by giving him just enough hope to stay desperate. "Why are you telling me this?" David's voice sounded foreign to his own ears. Alice finally sat down, water pooling beneath her. "Because Julian Vane made a mistake. He thinks fear is the only effective tool. But he forgot that eventually you run out of things to threaten someone with. And when that happens," she looked at Marcus, still sleeping, still burning with fever. "When that happens, people become dangerous. If you are listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I would not even reach 300 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Please subscribe to this channel by hitting the subscribe button. You can also turn on the notification bell to be updated when new video is posted. And let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now let's continue. They spent 2 hours building a plan. Alice still had access to certain legacy files from her father's original company founding, files the board didn't know existed. Combined with David's intimate knowledge of the merger structure, they could theoretically expose the patent theft, the insurance manipulation, maybe even find evidence connecting Vane to Elena's death. It was a long shot wrapped in desperation, but it was something. That's when Marcus's medical monitor started screaming. David was at his son's side in 2 seconds. Marcus's fever had spiked to 105.3. His breathing was shallow, rapid, but here's what made David's blood turn to ice. The monitor's display was glitching, numbers flickering, vital signs pixelating and reforming. This wasn't medical equipment failure. This was something else. David. Alice's voice was sharp with panic. Your laptop. Every device in the apartment had come alive simultaneously. David's laptop was deleting files, not randomly, but systematically. His phone showed the same cascade of deletion notifications. His tablet, Marcus's school-issued device. Even the smart thermostat was resetting itself. And on every screen buried in the error messages was a single repeating line of code, harvest_protocol_active. This is where my hand started shaking when I researched this story, because what Alice said next changes everything we think we understand about surveillance and control. It's a harvesting program. Julian Vane didn't just build financial traps. He built digital ones. Every device you've touched in 7 years, every file you created, every photo of Marcus, every medical record, it's all being remotely wiped. But David wasn't listening anymore. He was staring at something clutched in Marcus's unconscious hand. A letter, an official-looking envelope with gold embossing. Congratulations! Marcus Rodriguez has been accepted into the Vanguard Gifted Program. David had never heard of the Vanguard Gifted Program. Marcus had never mentioned applying. But the letter had arrived 3 days ago, the same day David sent his resignation email. And now, looking closer, David saw it. Embedded in the envelope's corner, barely visible, a microcircuit, a tracker. This wasn't a school acceptance letter. This was a digital leash disguised as an opportunity. Alice, David's voice was hollow. If they can remotely control Marcus's medical equipment. She finished the thought he couldn't speak. Then his fever might not be natural at all. David, we need to disconnect that monitor right now. If I disconnect it and he actually is sick, he could... And if you leave it connected and they're the ones making him sick, then what? Alice grabbed his shoulders, forced him to look at her. Think. Elena's research was on genetic treatments. What if they didn't just steal her work? What if they tested it? David's world tilted. Marcus had been diagnosed with his genetic condition when he was 5, 2 years after Elena died, after her research was seized, after her lab notes disappeared into corporate vaults. No, the word came out as a prayer. No, they wouldn't. But Alice's eyes said they would. They absolutely would. Marcus's monitor emitted a sharp, sustained tone, flat line. Then, impossibly, his vital signs returned to normal. Perfect normal. Like someone had flipped a switch. And on David's laptop screen, beneath the cascade of deleting files, a new message appeared. 72 hours to comply. Return all documents or lose all access. This includes medical systems. Julian Vane sends his regards. So here's the impossible question that's going to haunt us through the next chapter. Is Marcus even sick? Or has David spent 3 years treating a condition that was engineered specifically to control him? And if they can turn his son's illness on and off like a light switch, what else can they do? Decision time. David had 72 hours before Julian Vane's harvesting program finished, wiping every trace of Elena's research from existence. But more importantly, he had 72 hours before they permanently shut down Marcus's medical access. If his son's condition was even real to begin with, that question kept circling David's mind like a vulture. 3 years of treatments, hospital visits, specialist consultations. Had all of it been theater? Performance medicine designed to keep him compliant? Alice made the decision for him. We run. They couldn't go to the police. Julian Vane sat on the city's police foundation board. They couldn't go to the media. Erickson Industries owned or advertised with every major outlet in the region. They couldn't even go to a hospital because the moment Marcus's medical ID was scanned, Vane's people would know. So they went to the one place that corporate power structures couldn't easily reach, the dark spaces between official channels. Alice had maintained relationships with tech security experts from her early days building the company. People who understood that sometimes the law is too slow to deliver justice. One of them, a woman named Chun who operated out of a repurposed shipping container in Oakland, took one look at Marcus's gifted program letter and started laughing. Not humor, recognition. This, Chun said, holding the letter under UV light to reveal a sprawling circuit pattern invisible to normal sight, is military-grade biotelemetry. I've only seen this tech in classified defense contracts. Whoever put this in your son's hands isn't just tracking him. They're monitoring his biometric responses in real time. Heart rate, stress hormones, brain activity, everything. David felt the floor drop away. For how long? Based on the degradation pattern in the circuitry, I'd say this is second or third generation. Meaning, Chun looked at Marcus, sleeping fitfully on a cot. Your son has been under active surveillance for at least 2 years. Here's what keeps me awake about this part of the story. How many other families are living in invisible cages right now? How many other parents are treating conditions that were engineered specifically to make them desperate enough to comply with anything? Because that's the genius of Julian Vane's system. It doesn't look like violence. It looks like care. But Alice had been planning for this moment longer than David realized. When the board ousted her, they had forgotten that she still legally owned 23% of Erickson Industries through her father's original founding shares. Shares that predated the current corporate structure and included legacy access codes to systems that had never been fully updated, including the physical security systems at the company's original data center, a forgotten building in South San Francisco that nobody had visited in years. Everything Julian thinks he's deleting? Alice said, pulling up building schematics on Chen's monitors. He's only hitting the cloud backups and current servers. But Elena's original research was uploaded before cloud migration. It's sitting on physical drives in that data center, probably forgotten under years of legacy file labels. The plan was insane. Break into a supposedly abandoned corporate facility, navigate security systems that may or may not still be active, locate physical hard drives from 7 years ago, and extract Elena's research before Julian Vane's harvesting program discovered what they were doing and locked them out, or worse, locked them in. Chun provided them with hardware, scrambler devices to confuse the biotelemetry in Marcus's letter, a portable drive cloner, and something she called a dead man switch, a program designed to automatically upload whatever data they recovered to multiple anonymous servers if they didn't manually cancel it every 6 hours. Insurance against being silenced. One more thing, Chun said as they prepared to leave. That medical monitor you've been using for Marcus? I scanned its firmware while he was sleeping. She pulled up a code analysis that meant nothing to David but made Alice's face go pale. This isn't treatment equipment. It's a delivery system. Whatever condition your son has, this device has been actively suppressing his natural immune response to keep him dependent on it. Turn it off for 72 hours, and his body might actually heal itself. David looked at his son, his beautiful, brilliant boy who loved astronomy and couldn't pronounce supernova without giggling, and made a choice that would either save him or destroy everything. He disconnected the monitor. Marcus's fever broke within an hour. The data center looked like corporate archaeology. Abandoned server racks, disconnected cables, dust thick enough to write novels in. But the security systems? Those were very much alive. Alice's legacy codes got them to the front entrance. But every level deeper required another password, another authentication, another proof that they had permission to be there. And with each barrier they passed, David became more certain that Julian Vane knew exactly what they were doing. They found Elena's research in Sublevel 3, labeled under a project code that had been marked discontinued 7 years ago, the month she died. 47 drives containing her complete work, genetic treatment protocols, clinical trial data, manufacturing processes that would make her breakthrough available for less than $200 per patient instead of the $85,000 Erickson Industries was charging for inferior alternatives. David was cloning the drives when he heard it. Footsteps above them, multiple sets, and the mechanical were security doors engaging throughout the building. They'd been herded into a trap. Julian Vane's voice came through the building's PA system, smooth as oil. David, I'm disappointed. I offered you a good life, stable employment, medical care for your son. All you had to do was stay in your lane. But here's where Julian Vane made his fatal miscalculation. He assumed David would negotiate. He assumed fear was still the controlling force. He forgot that a man with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous force in the world. And a father who just watched his son's manufactured illness disappear the moment corporate surveillance equipment was disconnected, that father is beyond threats. David didn't respond to Julian's voice. Instead, he activated Chen's dead man switch. What did you just do? Alice asked. I set a 6-hour countdown, David said, his voice steady for the first time in 7 years. Every hour that we don't cancel it, Elena's complete research uploads to another 20 anonymous servers, medical journals, patent offices, open source repositories, WikiLeaks, every place that can be bought or buried. Julian's voice came back, no longer smooth. You wouldn't. That research is worth billions. You'd be making it worthless. No, David interrupted, speaking to the ceiling cameras he knew were watching. I'd be making it free, just like Elena wanted. And here's the beautiful part, Julian. I know you. You'll try to negotiate. You'll offer me money, position, protection. You'll promise to restore Marcus's medical coverage, even though we both know now that he never needed it. You'll waste 3 hours trying to manipulate me into canceling the upload, and by then it'll be too late. Alice understood first. You're not giving him a chance to comply. You're giving him a chance to reveal himself. Exactly, because David wasn't just exposing patent theft anymore. Every attempt Julian made to stop the upload would create evidence of the greater conspiracy. Threats? Recorded. Physical force? Documented. Attempted murder? Immortalized. Chen's dead man switch wasn't just backing up Elena's research. It was backing up a live stream of everything happening in this building. 20 million people would eventually watch Julian Vane destroy himself in real time. The security guards arrived at sublevel 3 14 minutes after David activated the countdown. But they didn't move against him. They moved away because Julian had made his first threat, and Chun had broadcasted to 50,000 IP addresses simultaneously. The prison guard doesn't assault the prisoner when the entire world is watching. Julian tried everything in those 6 hours. He offered David $10 million, then $50 million, then a complete executive position with full medical coverage for life. Not just Marcus, but unlimited care for any future family David might have. He threatened criminal prosecution for corporate espionage. He threatened Marcus's safety, which was probably the biggest mistake, because that threat got recorded and shared faster than any other clip. At hour 5, Julian's desperation reached its peak. He contacted David directly. "You're destroying billions in shareholder value. People will lose their jobs. Pensions will collapse. You're not a hero. David, you're an economic terrorist." And here's my take on that moment, because this is where we see what real power looks like. David's response wasn't anger. It wasn't triumph. It was tired clarity. "Julian, you spent 7 years of my life making me believe that Marcus's survival depended on my compliance. You manufactured his illness. You murdered my wife. You stole her legacy and locked it behind price barriers that killed thousands of people who could have been saved. And you did all of this while convincing yourself you were the hero of your own story, the brilliant businessman who understood that value requires scarcity. So no, I'm not the terrorist. I'm just a janitor, cleaning up your mess." At hour 6, the Dead Man Switch completed its final upload. Elena Rodriguez's genetic treatment research became public domain, patent-free, available to any laboratory, any clinic, any doctor who wanted to manufacture at cost. Julian Vane was indicted on 17 counts ranging from corporate fraud to conspiracy to commit murder. The board members who'd supported him scrambled to distance themselves, but the digital evidence was overwhelming. Ericsson Industries stock crashed 67% in 3 days, was broken up by federal regulators, and ceased to exist within a year. David never went back to finance. He used his settlement from the company's dissolution to start a nonprofit called Elena's Legacy, dedicated to manufacturing low-cost genetic treatments. Marcus, healthy, thriving, genuinely accepted into a gifted program on his own merit. Wants to be an astronaut. He still can't pronounce supernova without giggling. And Alice runs a foundation with David. She was in her wet elegant dress standing in a downpour the night. Everything changed because sometimes, just sometimes, the person you think is your enemy is actually the only one brave enough to tell you the truth. The final shot is simple. Sunlight streaming through a kitchen window. Coffee brewing. Marcus explaining a science project about black holes. And on the wall, framed between family photos, is that acceptance letter, the real one this time. No hidden circuits. No surveillance technology. Just paper and ink and possibility. The invisible cage is gone, but its shadow remains, a reminder that the most sophisticated forms of control rarely look like chains. They look like care. They look like opportunities. They look like everything you've ever wanted, offered by people who understand that desperation makes excellent currency. So here's the real question. Did you subscribe yet? Thousands of people will listen to this story and won't subscribe. Please don't be that person. Kindly support what I do here by subscribing. And then drop in the comment section if you like part 2 of David, Alice, and Marcus's story. What challenges will they face running Elena's Legacy? How will they deal with the other corporations that want to bury low-cost treatments? Let me know if you want to hear more.